With the introduction of the budget cap, a new kind of race has begun, a battle for fairness. In this video, we explore the loopholes, controversies, and suspicions surrounding the budget cap, and the lengths teams will go to gain an edge. According to a Formula One team principle, the budget cap is not achieving its intended purpose, as there is a loophole that allows teams to improve their performance on and off the track without it being counted towards the budget cap. If this loophole is proven to be true, it could be a significant blow to the effectiveness of the budget cap, and there may be calls for it to be revised or even scrapped altogether. It's certainly a surprise development that has raised questions about the future of the budget cap in the sport. In 2021, the F1 sport introduced a budget cap in response to concerns that the top teams were spending excessively to create the most competitive car, leaving the midfield and backmarker teams struggling to keep up. This created a situation where investors were reluctant to invest in these struggling teams, resulting in a lack of competition and attention focused on only the top three teams: Red Bull, Ferrari, and Mercedes. The budget cap aimed to level the playing field and create a more equitable and exciting racing season for all teams involved. Thanks to the budget cap in F1, teams are forced to operate within a specified limit of spending. The cap encompasses all aspects of the car, from its steering wheel all the way to its wheel nuts, as well as team personnel. In 2021, the budget cap was set at $145 million, and teams were warned that any breach of this cap would result in severe penalties. And indeed, Red Bull was the first team to be caught out for breaching the budget cap, albeit by less than 5% or under $7 million. While $7 million may seem like a fortune to most people, it's mere peanuts in the world of F1. Nevertheless, the rules are the rules, and Red Bull faced the consequences of their actions. The penalties were set in advance, so there was no way to avoid them. As a result, the Austrian team was handed a $7 million fine and saw their wind tunnel time reduced by 10%. Nonetheless, it's a small price to pay for the thrill of the race. The budget cap in F1 has undoubtedly been a game changer, but it seems like teams have found a way to exploit a loophole that could give them a competitive edge. While the cap restricts spending on all aspects of the car and team personnel, there's a glaring gap that allows teams to pour unlimited resources into other competitions that can directly impact their F1 performance. In other words, teams can flex their financial muscle and invest heavily in other racing competitions using the data and resources they gain from those events to improve their F1 game. And the best part? They won't be penalized for it because the money spent wasn't directly in F1. It's a genius strategy, but also one that could potentially upset the level playing field created by the budget cap. The budget cap has made it challenging for F1 teams to balance their workforce while staying within the budget limit. But with the said loophole, they would be able to circumvent the cap's restrictions without revealing the actual costs involved. If this loophole is exploited, it would be a severe blow to the credibility of the budget cap, and the offending teams would undoubtedly face a backlash from fans and competitors alike. On the other hand, any team found to be playing by the rules and sticking to the cap would set a standard for others to follow. It's a critical issue that highlights the need for vigilant monitoring of team activities and expenditures to maintain a level playing field in F1. Alpine's team principal, Otmar Szafnauer, has urged the FIA to take action on a potential loophole that allows teams to exploit their workforce for non-F1 projects to bypass the budget cap. Szafnauer emphasizes that this loophole poses a significant threat to the cap's credibility, and the FIA needs to raise awareness of this issue. Despite this concern, Szafnauer acknowledges the budget cap's impact on the sport, bringing competition and racing closer and driving team valuations higher. He notes that the current cap is 10 times larger than any other racing formula's budget, making it more than enough to regulate F1 expenses. Szafnauer has urged the FIA to take note of this and prevent these ancillary businesses from cropping up and effectively rendering the budget cap useless. While the cap has been beneficial to the sport, major teams with other racing categories at their disposal could see these loopholes as a significant boost to their performance. Red Bull's breach of the budget cap was found to be largely due to sick pay and catering, highlighting the importance of monitoring all aspects of team spending. It is concerning that the loopholes could allow teams to manage their staff in a way that brings them to the highest optimum paycheck within the budget cap restrictions. As Adrian Newey shifts his focus towards hypercars, questions arise about Red Bull's ability to maintain their dominance in the sport. Meanwhile, other teams have raised suspicion by seemingly gaining massive amounts of performance despite the financial and developmental restrictions in place. The FIA must remain vigilant to ensure that the budget cap truly serves its purpose in keeping the sport competitive and fair for all teams. Aston Martin may have exploited a loophole in the budget cap to gain an advantage in the 2022 Formula One season. The team hired a former Red Bull aerodynamics expert, Dan Fallows, along with 100 engineers, which initially seemed to fall within the budget cap constraints. However, there are suspicions that Aston Martin may have used this personnel for non-F1 projects, allowing them to gain an advantage outside of the regular operations and effectively bypass the budget cap. Rumors have also surfaced about a website being contacted by an Aston Martin insider about the team's tactics to circumvent the cap. It turns out that while only 70 people are considered part of the racing team, the remaining 900 individuals are classified as outside the team, which conveniently allows for cost apportionment. This has raised some concerns among Formula One executives, including Schaffnauer, who pointed out the obvious fact that this is something that the sport needs to worry about and pay closer attention to. However, it seems that this loophole is no secret to the teams themselves. In fact, some teams with racing categories outside of Formula One are manipulating the loophole to their advantage. Take Red Bull, for instance. They have companies outside the budget cap, and some senior staff, such as Christian Horner, are paid from these companies, which allows them to take home some hefty salaries without contributing to the team's budget cap. It's safe to say that Formula One needs to address this issue before it gets out of hand. After all, we don't want the sport to become a competition of who can outsmart the rules, do we? Otmar, for one, believes that the budget cap extends far beyond the issue raised by Horner. It appears that many teams have been employing a large number of workers off the main payroll, which is effectively outside of the budget cap. This raises concerns that some teams may have been taking advantage of this loophole to gain an edge in the 2023 season. While it's great to see teams making significant progress compared to the previous season, there are concerns about the fairness of the competition. Nobody wants to see Aston Martin caught up in a cheating scandal, especially after they were found guilty of a procedural breach of the 2021 budget cap. The last thing the sport and the team need right now is another controversial season. The big question is whether Red Bull and Aston Martin used the loophole to gain an advantage in Formula One. Only time will tell, but it's certainly got people talking. So what are your thoughts on the budget cap loophole? Do you think that Red Bull and Aston Martin could have used it to gain an edge in the sport? Let us know in the comments below.